And now we are going to talk about the world of events as it relates to sustainability. I know many of you know Sherry Huss. Sherry is the VP of Community at Freeman. Her heart is in every community, everywhere, maker music, preserving the planet. I can't even say enough good things, but I asked Sherry each year to come and speak because the urgency gets greater and greater. So Sherry, over to you.
Great, thank you. Thanks. And I really want to thank Robin and the VEG group for making sustainability a priority. I'm hoping that this is something that we can repeat every year and maybe track our progress as we go. Last year, we did a beautiful session where we brought in a lot of folks as well. And I mean, I remember Earth Day going back, it was 1970. Actually, I was in high school and I can remember like the ecology now and all of those things that kind of have stayed with me. And producing Maker Faire, one of our key tenets was to make sure that we were sustainable and green. And even though it cost more, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our panel, it's one of those things that the short-term cost will definitely outweigh the long-term benefit. So anyway, some things have happened over the last few years, and I'll say I think that the pandemic did us some favors. So I think it was hard for the event industry, but sustainability moved from being a buzzword, and now it's actually something that corporations are really taking seriously, and it's a corporate mandate. We've seen more event organizers and planners try to figure out how they can actually make their events sustainable. We're now getting technology platforms and tools to help us track and measure, because really, if we can't track and measure it, how do we know if we're going to get better at this? And event companies, even like Freeman, is really doing everything that we can to kind of push forward here. We're looking at bringing back green teams. We're looking at providing sustainable solutions to our partners and even education to clients. And a lot of this comes down to education. But my goal, I think every day is to kind of make this earth better. And I think we all feel the effects. I live in Northern California, and trust me, climate change. I know JT's another Northern California person, Lauren's in Southern California, and it's not even just California anymore. It's all over. We've felt climate change. We felt water shortage, waste management. One of my good friends, actually, she was our sustainability lead for Maker Faire, said, Sherry, everything that we do these days, we're acquiring things, and all those things have to be disposed of. So something really to think about, and even as we talk a little bit more today. But anyway, I could go on and on about this. I'm glad that I've got three really passionate event professionals that are joining me today. They all have their own unique view on it. JT Long comes from the media world with smart meetings. Malcolm Leach is the CTO of isla and is going to talk a little bit about Trace. And Lauren Bergloff is heading up sustainability efforts with us at Freeman, and she's going to talk a little bit about what we're doing. So we'll get started with hearing what they're about, what they're thinking about, and then we'll come back and really open it up to some questions. So to get going, I'd like to introduce JT Long, who is actually a neighbor, lives in Petaluma, California, and editorial director of Smart Meetings. And I want to give her a major plug and her publication and media outlet. Smart Meetings, and gosh, these are really thick magazines, which I love to see coming from the media world, about the net zero carbon events pledge. And then the February or the March-April issue, which just came out, not only does it showcase all the smart women meeting professionals, it also has a whole section on what is a green RFP. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to JT.
Yeah, and what I want to talk about is that green RFP survey, because we did a survey of our readers. And one of the things Robin very adroitly pointed out is that if we can all do one little thing, well, if a planner does one little thing, that affects a whole lot of people, because meeting professionals can control so much. Everything they do is just compounded. So that's why I think it's so important that we address this at the event level. So I am going to share some of the results from the survey that we did. And just because everyone asked, this is such a beautiful picture. I have an amazing art team. This is Kilt Rock Waterfall in the Isle of Skye in Scotland, and a beautiful picture. But I want to tell you, in February, we did a survey of 367 meeting professionals, and the respondents ranked sustainability as a major priority when choosing a destination. They said 42% said they always or usually include questions about sustainability in their requests for proposals. And so that is shown here. I think one of the big things that we found in this survey is that it's important that you start thinking about it at the beginning of the process and not at the end say, oh yeah, what can we do to make this sustainable? And so that very first topic of, are you thinking about it when you're doing an RFP? When you reach out to a property, what are you asking for? Are you asking about their practices for recycling food waste? Are you asking for? And so that's where we went with the survey. We found that pardon the pun, the meat and potatoes issue meeting professionals are asking about is food sourcing and waste handling. And we have a huge story about that in the May magazine that's coming up, and some of the really inventive things that are being done to have some win-wins when it comes to that. More than 61% said they're looking for venues that have detailed programs around ethically and locally sourced ingredients and establishing protocols for minimizing food waste. They want recycling programs that go beyond a catch-all bin. And they're saying that location matters. They're thinking about travel and how people are going to get there. They're considering how far their attendees will have to go, how many Sprinter vans they're going to need, and bus loops to take them to the gala event when they're coming back from the workshopping. And all of that, walkable cities get bonus points. And so we're seeing sometimes it's small cities that are winning when people consider RFPs. Also high on the list is whether the building is LEED certified and energy efficient. And I'll tell you, I just got back from Global Meetings Industry Day in New Orleans, and a dear friend of the magazine, and she's also a Smart Woman winner from 2020, I think, is Lauren Parr. She's with the American Geophysical Union, and she was looking to move her meeting outside San Francisco for the first time and talk New Orleans Convention Center, which was not LEED certified, but they were willing to work with her. And after she shared some of the findings from her members, because climate change is a big thing for the scientists that are her members, the convention center is now LEED Gold certified. And I toured the convention center, and they're doing some really creative things and really move forward. So really what came out of this study is that the partnership is what makes all of the difference. One of the quotes that was from, because I also talked to some of the venues and the destinations about what they bring to the table when planners come to them, is that accountability in our plans is an increasingly important decision-making for groups when selecting a destination. In addition to recommendations for offsites, businesses are aligned on a sustainability plan. Planners are also actively seeking out female and/or Indigenous-owned business to partner with. And that's from Destination Toronto. And that was, I guess, the final finding I'm just going to highlight, and I'm going to give you the entire study so that you can see it. But these issues aren't isolated. So civil justice, sustainability, all of these things work together. And looking at them holistically and early in the process is the secret.
Nice. Thank you, JT. That's great. You know, and I do think that you're absolutely right. There are so many things that are interwoven. And I'm also going to throw on, before I introduce Malcolm, another thing too, when we start looking at the generational overlays too. Mm-hmm. We're finding, and this can be a whole nother session, but millennials, Gen Zs are all about even working for companies that are purpose-led and driven. And this is a big topic. So again, all of these things are kind of, it's complicated and there's a lot of overlays, but we can definitely start teasing it apart. So thank you. With that said, let me introduce you to Malcolm Leach. who is the CTO of Isla, and Malcolm is joining us from the UK. So thank you, Malcolm, for staying up late. I know that you're passionate about this topic too, and maybe you can share a little bit about your background and what you've been up to.
Well, thanks for having me, because actually I kind of feel like I'm amongst the great and good here of the events industry. Now, I've only been with Isla for about 6 months now, and I used to be in finance, so in terms of my career, I've been kind of making rich people richer, which has been terrible because that's always kind of conflicted with my like personal goals about sustainability. I come from parents who were always mend and make do, right? Because it's that kind of post-war mentality and everything else that meant that we never wasted anything. You repaired stuff, you reused things all the time, right? Although they were doing it for economic reasons, and now, of course, it's the same stuff that we need to do, but for sustainability reasons. But that's why it's great for me now to be working at Isla and helping to progress the Trace platform, which is our carbon measurement platform, because now I get to do professionally what I've also, I've always had a passion for personally. And it's been, a whirlwind of understanding and learning about the events industry and all of its various different forms and the complexities and everything else. I mean, I thought finance was complicated, but it turns out that events are even more so. Sorry, someone asking a question? No, good. Okay. Like I said, my main responsibility is for the Trace platform with Isla. So Isla is a membership organization. It's got a framework for how to get to net zero for your events. It's got training, consultancy, etc. But the platform is where my main passion is, and I think that using the technology on the platform, we started out with measurement. We've been running for about a year now. So we're just about to give you the insights back from that year's worth of data gathering. We've got global events that have occurred. So we've got lots in the UK because we're UK based. So that's mainly where our events are. But we also have some in the US, Italy, Vietnam, places like that, right? So we've got lots and lots of data now in Trace that's giving us real kind of insights into some surprising things. I mean, I could do a kind of flash poll now, right? So I think probably it's no surprise that travel, especially air travel, is a big carbon problem for all events, right? So that's not very surprising. But when you get down into the production materials and the graphics, in the chat, what do people think is the worst offender in terms of things that you would make and then potentially throw away at the end? You can go for generic stuff. You can talk about things like wood, plastic, metal, whatever. Yeah. I'll give you a few more seconds. Because generally, I think we kind of think, if you go to an event, you've got a stand, you've got you've got all your kind of the graphics and things, and the whole kind of stand set up. And some of that ends up going in the bin, but it's actually, I'll give the answer now. It's carpet. Carpet came out as like one of the big things because, and I guess, you think about it, it's one of those, it's a composite material. It's very hard to recycle. Like in terms of like reuse and rehiring, stuff like that. Quite hard too, right? Because you don't want carpets get soiled over time, cleaning them's hard, all that sort of thing. So when you start looking at the data and looking at across all of the events that go on, carpet sticks right out there as one of the biggest problems, right? Who'd have thought that, right? I don't think any of us would particularly have guessed at that. So it's things like that I'm really kind of excited about in terms of the Trace platform and its ability to measure and give us those kind of insights back to help us drive sustainably forward. So that's me.
Excellent. And then I don't know, Malcolm, I don't know if you were going to show any slides or.
Oh no, actually I won't show the slides. I thought I'd just put that one through. Okay,
that's cool. Well, it's interesting. It's kind of a nice segue into Lauren now, because I know that she's just here ready. Lauren Bergloff is actually she's with Freeman. She has a hospitality background, so she gets to look at things a little differently than maybe that I look at things. But without further ado, Lauren, I'm going to introduce you and let you share some of your thoughts on this. And I think I saw a big smile on your face when you heard
Yeah,
carpet.
I know. It's funny. I was like, Malcolm and I didn't even practice. And I was like, oh, wow. Look at my first point on this slide. Dare to go bear. And I also wanted to acknowledge some people in the chat. I saw that Natalie said that she loves having vegan options with at food events. It sounds small, but it adds up.
Mhm.
And it reminded me, Sherry and I hosted an event in San Diego, and we surprised everyone with a meatless meal. We didn't tell anyone we were going to have a lunch without meat. We just did it. And it was a buffet style setup. And it was amazing to see everyone walking around trying to find the meat and then like grumbling, oh no, we don't have meat. And, as in the planning process, we were a little nervous. We're like, oh, I don't know. Like, is this going to be okay? And Sherry was brave enough and she just said, no, we're doing it. It's one meal they can survive. And to me, I thought it was the best meal we served all conference because it was so delicious, right, Sherry?
It was. Well, the other thing is, real quick, is that we also empowered the chefs.
Yes.
They're used to making all of these like they have to make certain meals. They had a garden. They went and actually got to use all the vegetables in the garden. They were most inspired, and they did what they do and then what they're most passionate about, which is create great food. And you don't need meat.
Yeah, it was really neat. And then our CEO Bob Priestheck, he announced at the next meeting and said, "What do you think?" And we showed some stats on how big of an impact beef has on water, land, and our environment too. But can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. So I wanted to start off going over some of the things you can do and little things that Freeman does to make your sustainability or your event more sustainable. So as you can hear, as we're talking, ESG, environmental, social governance is a big thing, and tracking that has been more important than ever. So it's all of our responsibility to make a more eco-conscious event. And to do that, you need to collaborate everywhere. You need to go to the facility, the venue, waste management, food sourcing, logistics. So everyone's involved and it's a team effort. And at trade shows, carpeting, like Malcolm said, is one of the biggest wasters out there. I went to Greenbuild in San Francisco and they didn't have any aisle carpet. And it looked great. It's just something that we're used to having and something you can make a big impact. It's not just the material of the carpet. It's getting it out there with shipping, which causes, uses fuel, and there's more carbon emissions that way. And you have less weight in your trailer, less fuel emitted. And then we have rentals is another really good way when you're having an event rather than just buying. I see a lot of people buy IKEA furniture and then just leave it there. And donations are great. That is wonderful. But the best way would be to rent it over and over and over again, and then maybe donate it when it goes out of style or whatever. You don't need it anymore. But rentals have been a really, really good way to do something without recycling or throwing it in the landfill. And then finally, we've got environmental reporting. I am so grateful for Malcolm and his team. They'll be helping us in the long run with reporting. And then another really important thing about sustainability is sharing it and planning it from the beginning to the end. So it's a whole process. When you're planning your event, it's really important to have sustainability articulated to your vendors, your suppliers, your stakeholders, so everyone's on the same page. And briefing, training, back of house, front of house, wherever you are, making sure everyone knows what your goals are. And one suggestion I have during an event, using digital signage or recyclable printed graphics, not, that foam core that's just going to go into the landfill and never break down. And then after the event, it's so important to talk about it, either sharing it on social media or going to each of those stakeholders and saying, what did we do good? What did we not do so great? And then improve upon that. Asking for feedback is important. And then going on to next year, actually changing the things that you found. And we have 6 categories of focus for the events industry. We are part of the Net Zero Carbon Events Group, and we really do need a lot of representation in North America, where there's only a few of us in these groups that are from the United States, and we'd love to have more representation. So I can send a link in the chat after I'm done speaking to share what the Net Zero Carbon Events Group is, and what the pledge is and how you can sign up. But we divide it into a few categories, and some of them are travel and accommodation, food and food waste, logistics, venue energy, smart production and waste management. And then another category that I didn't write here is reporting, because we report on all those things. And then unbolded at the bottom, I have carbon offsetting, because I feel like it's really important to actually change what we're doing instead of offsetting what we're doing and just doing the status quo. And here's where I can get into the nitty gritty of some opportunities and challenges that I've seen. I've been with Freeman since June, so I am new to the events industry. I worked at a luxury hotel for 9 years before, and I was their sustainability leader. One of their pillars was sustainability, and I convinced them that they needed one person in charge. So it's definitely my passion, and I absolutely love it. But in the little time I've worked for Freeman, I found that a lot of the opportunities and challenges are the same. You know, finding initiatives that are either the same cost or a cost savings makes it a lot easier to get your people in charge to go along with your sustainability initiatives. Another big thing I found was logistics, training, and maintaining programs, finding a way that is convenient and efficient for everyone, or if you're going to change something big, making it worth their while. And then changing mindsets, of course. Once you get people to change mindsets, they're more likely to go along with your sustainability initiatives. And planning in advance, driving this one home. Plan, because the more you plan in advance, the more time you have to actually make a sustainable event. So many times when I was in the hotel, people would come, oh, we have an event coming in a week. How can we make it sustainable? Like, oh man, like, which I would have known a little further before, because, you know, you can help plan. Oh, you have balloons. Well, actually, balloons go into the atmosphere and then they go into the ocean right off our coast. And I've seen them, you know, around ocean creatures. Or, you know, we could have a composting station for people to see and learn how we compost and set that up and stuff like that. And then also important is establishing your baseline of data so that year over year you can keep coming back and seeing how you're either improving or how you can improve. And then I think this is the biggest thing with sustainability, which I don't think a lot of people would guess. It's storage. How many times I've had all of these initiatives where I want to reuse, rent, you know, whatever, donate, but we can only donate a big amount, so we have to store it somewhere. So storage weirdly has a lot to do with my challenges that I found in sustainability. And that's it for me for now. And we can go over more things. Let me stop sharing my screen and I'll kick it back to you, Sherry.
Yeah. So what does everyone think? I mean, it's I've got some questions for the panel, but I'm curious. Do you have questions that you want to throw out there? And feel free to speak. You don't have to type it into the chat. I mean, we've got people that are, I mean, everything from JT, who's out there almost probably every week at a venue, talking to meeting planners. We have Malcolm, who's working on creating technology for tracking. And Lauren, I'll tell you, she's just got her hands in lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
But before I start asking questions, does anyone have any comments or open it up for the group? And you don't have to turn your camera on to speak.
So I'll start, I guess. I put this in the chat, but I feel like in order to sell this up the ladder, you know, you're gonna have to go to your boss and say, I need more money to do this, and because it's the right thing to do. You've got to make your attendees aware of what's going on too. Yeah. Attendees are like lame. Like, I don't know what kind of carpet. It doesn't, the little details that event people perseverate over are lost unless we educate them. You no, we don't not have carpet because we're cheap or we want to.
I heard that too.
Right? I mean, because that's the obvious thing. Or we don't want to have a vegan meal because we're cheap. So how do you, and I know Natalie's on this call and has a lot to say. I think when you elevate the visibility of all this, it gets easier.
Let me see if anyone else wants to answer. I'm going to see if I can bring up some signage that Sherry and I used that I really, really loved. Hold on.
Lauren's doing that too. I was going to say, I'm trying to find the best show that I've seen that hasn't used carpet is Zoomtopia. And Robin, I'll get you a picture for you to use because actually there are other things that are created. And I don't know if there's a cost to everything and everything has to be, there's still materials that everything is being used. But anyway, there are things, and I think from design, if you can design it in from the beginning and get people to start thinking about that, that's awesome. But back to you, Lauren.
And we found a kind of toggle with it where we didn't want to be so in your face to turn people off, because I know a lot of people, when you bring up being vegan, get in a weird way offended. But so what we did is we did that surprise, tried to shock people with that. And then we talked about it after. And as you can see, our amazing marketing team made these really digestible. They were just 8.5 by 11 at the start of all the buffets. And then also with the milk was in the start of every coffee station. So we had dairy milk and oat milk. But I just feel like the visuals really help. And then down the road, you can get a little more passionate about it, in your face about it if you want to. But we wanted to start off a little passive to actually get the buy-in. And that's just my opinion. Everyone has different ones, but that's how I've seen it work. Even though I'm like, yes, this is great. And then we also did a buffet, and here's a picture of the meatless meal, but instead of individually wrapped trail mix packets, we had this little station. So that's a little bit about how we did.
And the t-shirts, what we did too, I can tell you, like with what we did is we brought in, and all these things take, again, it's planning. It takes a little more work, but I'm going to tell you, a lot of executives, they're leaving these t-shirts and things that they get in their hotel room. They're not taking them home. So what we did is we asked actually attendees, hey, bring one of your favorite t-shirts, come and we'll teach you how to screen, and we're going to screen it. And it was actually a fun activity, which, like all activities, getting people hands-on, and again, a page from my Maker Faire days, it gets people to talk, communicate, and be together. And it was actually a really fun project, and we'll continue to do that. But like I said, folks that are wearing $100 tennis shoes aren't going to be taking home or wearing a $20 t-shirt right now. So anyway, but that was fun.
Yeah.
It's fun designing it in. And actually, I think Natalie had it too. It really is smart design. It's just kind of it's a shift. And I think that I had mentioned it earlier too, like there is this millennial overlay. Millennials, Gen Zs are going to actually force us to think differently about everything that we're doing. And I think that's really positive. I want to talk about tracking though. Lauren, you spend a lot of hours tracking. Malcolm, you're creating a tool to help track, which actually goes right back to JT's green RFP. JT, Lauren, Malcolm, I mean, what are you thinking about this area and what should be brought out in the open?
I'll let Malcolm take this one.
Yeah, tracking. So of course, one of the biggest barriers really is so you go to an agency or you go to a brand and say, right, you're going to track everything in your event, and it's like, oh god, like kind of what everything, all of the items, and it seems like it's a huge kind of thing to do, right? So that's why what many of the features we're going to be implementing in Trace are all going to be about how do we make it really easy for people to capture information, right? So we've released some features so you can just invite your suppliers to the platform, just send them an email, say, for your thing, here's an email, you log in, you put the information in, so I don't have to do it as the event organizer, right? And you can connect to, if you're a big event, then you can connect to other agencies, et cetera, right? So the idea is that the platform provides that kind of connective tissue to all of the people that are involved in the event, so everyone can then join in on that capturing. Because if you leave it down to a few people, it's an enormous job to do, especially for a really big event, right? It's overwhelming. And the other things we want to do as well is just to try and kind of integrate more with other ecosystem players. So when we talk about things like audience travel, I was talking to a company called USmartThing, and they've developed an app that they're working with venues to then. So the app is for the attendees themselves, and it gives them, clever, real insights on, okay, you're here, you need, if you take public transport, then you can get the shuttle bus to the actual venue from like the train station or wherever it is, or from the airport, etc. And the idea is, the new smart thing is that they work and then join everything up with the venue, and then kind of incentivize attendees for doing more sustainable journeys. And the great thing about that is on their platform, then you got attendee travel data automatically captured. You can just, we're going to join Trace up to the API and say, okay, we'll just pull all that data in, right? And that's kind of a dream, right? It's sort of set it and forget it. And then for all of the other types of things as well that come into events too, and that's the other thing that we're going to kind of try to look into features for that too. So hopefully over time, what we'll start to see is, instead of it being such a huge kind of data entry exercise, it actually, the information's just there, the interfaces are there, and everything flows in. So you just kind of point and click, and it kind of shows you what you need.
I love that. And that speaks back to what Lauren and Sherry were saying about and Robin being able to communicate to attendees when they're part of it, right? Then they definitely feel like, oh, well, if you do a challenge or you help these people to really feel that they can make a difference personally. And that was one of the things in our survey, is that, if you can't measure whether you were successful, which has to be set up at the very beginning, then your CEO isn't going to have buy-in either. So that measurement is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the whole kind of joined up thinking about it as well, rather than seeing kind of attendee travel. It's like, well, we can't do anything about that, right? They're just going to travel, right? So no, actually there is some stuff we can do and actually make it a bit more sensible and a bit more efficient.
So I want Mark to tell us about Scrap, because we don't, not everybody knows, and it sounds so great. Mark, are you still there? We're going to have to read your lips. No, we're going to have to read your chat. Okay.
Oh, it looks like yeah.
I had to find the unmute button. Yeah, so Scrap is basically a place that mainly manufacturers in San Francisco send all of their leftover stuff to. So what I found was a spool full of like thick material. It's not technically carpet, but it meets the needs for my carpeting mandate in my lease for my brand new apartment. But yeah, and I try to go there, like if I'm looking for furniture or storage bins or anything that I might need, I try to go there on my way to the big box stores, so that I can kind of intervene my own purchases when and where possible.
Yeah, no, that's smart, Mark. Lauren spends a lot of time. I mean, I look at because I've been on the event industry where we do see a lot of waste. I mean, and things some shows get bulldozed at the end, like just because there's no time, there's labor, there's so many issues. It's so complicated. But I look at these materials, and my maker headset is like, oh my gosh, these could be going to schools, or this could be repurposed here, or go to maker spaces. But Lauren, why don't you just tell us about like behind the scenes, back of house, like when a show closes, when it closes, what happens to all that stuff?
I'm going to say it depends on the show.
Okay.
It also depends on the location. I've seen many shows where everything just gets bulldozed and then just gets thrown in the trash. I've seen shows where they have a lot of reusable booths, and they just take those booths down. They fold up the fabric that they use to customize the booth, and then that fabric just goes to the next area. So what I love about Freeman's Flex systems, they're modular builds. And so every city that we have shows in have that framework, but it's just the fabric that gets sent to each show. So if you can imagine the difference between sending a booth made out of whatever materials and getting sent in a truck to each city, instead of, just a little bit of fabric, that's made a huge, huge impact. So another thing that happens on the show floor is sometimes we have donation programs, which is really exciting to see. You would think, oh, let's just donate things, but I saw the other side of donating. We had theft one time at a show where people thought donation meant it's for me. And so we changed our stickers from saying donation to hold for collection. So that way people won't think it's free. So it's, learning lessons like that and becoming,
But Lauren, why is that important? Because you've got arrangements with.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, of course we would love to donate to anyone, but the tricky part of it is we promise, let's say Goodwill, we're going to have a whole trailer full of furniture for you. But then if we only have 2 chairs, they spent money on their own truck to come get it. They spent money on labor, all this stuff that they don't have necessarily. So that's the balance. Thanks, Sherry, for keeping me on track. The balance is finding enough donations so it's worth these charities to come and pick it up, and collecting it and keeping it safe. That's another big part of it. So a lot of logistics that go into the donation programs and finding the right people. And, sometimes we'll donate to scrap, but it's too much. They don't have enough storage for it. So that's why I get all hung up on the storage part of waste and whatnot. Waste.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Gosh, actually, I had a side question here too, about kind of even like with Freeman's business model has been such that, Freeman makes money on things like carpet and freight and whatnot. And how are we adjusting that? And I'll say the honest answer is we're working through that. We know that we are still looking and we're looking at alternatives. There are new things that obviously like new lines of business that, that are actually happening at Freeman. We have a vibrant agency group. I mean, Freeman's customers are associations, for-profit event organizers, and corporate accounts. Most people know us for, again, most people think that we kind of do freight and, carpeting and whatnot, but we have a whole host of things. So fortunately, we're lucky that there are more lines of business, and that we can kind of look to. We know we have to move away from this. Lauren, I think you were talking to even some of the carpet folks too. I don't know if there's anything relevant to share there, but we are very much aware. We got through the pandemic. We went from something like 7,000 employees down to 1,000. We're back up now to just under 5,000. And a lot of that's been kind of by ingenuity and kind of figuring out how do we adjust to kind of manage moving forward. We do know that we need to make a difference here. So we are working on that. I don't know if that answers you, but.
No, and the pandemic had different rules. Individually wrapped had to be individually wrapped,
Yeah.
And so I feel like it kind of set us back, but tell me what you guys see. So I just came back from NAB show, and this man who used to own a bunch of radio stations, he's 92 years old. He said to me, I used to get so much good stuff at these shows and nobody's giving anything out. So I actually think there is education. I saw very little swag. And the only swag I saw were tote bags, which actually can be pretty useful now that plastic bags are illegal everywhere. So I didn't feel as bad, but t-shirts, balls, stickers, pens, and I don't know if it was just that one show. What are you seeing? Are you seeing a difference?
Yeah, we do stories about, gifting all the time as well. And the big thing now is to do gifting experiences where people are actually, choosing something that is meaningful to them, whether it's, at our events, it's like a watch or shoes or a hat or sunglasses but it's something where it's not just something that's disposable and they will, as you said, leave in the hotel room when they're on their way out. I think that swag is really moving to something that's more meaningful and an experience.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I share something really quick?
No, while you do that, actually, Marianne, you had a question while Lauren's getting ready to share.
Yeah, I could have lost it is there, because I work in financial services with ESG and measuring ESG, the greenwashing that you've all heard about. In this industry, is there like a rating system, like this event or this conference is a 2? Is there any agency that's saying this has reached this level of compliance with recycling, with looking for alternative, so I know that I think the younger generation will be looking for something to say that this is a rating schedule. And also, I think you should get some inspiration from Philip Morris or Altria, smoke company, who's putting themselves out of business of a smokeless society, smokeless agency or company. And it's being led by Marion Salzman, who I used to work with at Huss. So here's a whole industry that was known for this that's turning it around. So in some ways, Sherry, it could be an interesting transformation with the carpeting for Freeman. I don't know how you're going to get around it, but that there is those pivots that are happening in the industry. So I think measurement and rating and also reimagining what the event is.
Yeah. I'm going to say, I don't think we're there yet, but I think tools like what Malcolm's working on with Trace as part of ISLA, I think what JT and what she's finding with her survey, that we're going to need that. And that's where I think we're working toward that.
Yeah.
JT, Malcolm, you want to say anything? And then we'll shoot to Lauren.
The venues are measured, the lead and those sorts of things. And then a number of the planning designers, like Freeman, have taken the net zero pledge, which is part of that. But I have not seen each individual event measured, and I think it's a fabulous idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the we're working with some large venues in the UK actually, in terms of like kind of how from the venues point of view and how they're doing all this sort of stuff. And actually, the other thing we're finding as well in terms of like certifications and other things is that especially the brands that we're dealing with, we're getting many more kind of audits of methodology. How are you doing it? Is this correct? Are you using the right factors? How are you accounting for X? One big brand that we've been working with, we've been having like a 3-month kind of due diligence process with Trace particularly, and they're going over every last detail. Good thing is they're verifying it and saying, yeah, that's great. So I think I know we've got some ISO standards and SBTI and things like that, and I think there's probably going to have to be some kind of like with all standards, they kind of grow and then you kind of like start to get more back together and say these are the ones that are really verified and we can really count on. Don't think we're there yet, but maybe in the next couple of years they're really going to start to solidify and people are going to start trusting them a bit more, because obviously we're just in the phase of getting over the greenwashing scandals and everything else that's gone on, right? So I think there's probably a little bit of distrust in certification somewhat across not just in events but across the whole of the corporate world, right? Because no one wants to be in the news for thinking they've done the right thing and then finding out that it's all just a bit of greenwashing. So
well, it seems like a great opportunity for an Ernst & Young or Deloitte, who handle all the compliance. So maybe the meetings industry can have their own watchdog and collect that revenue for themselves. And also that we know in Europe, especially with the EU, very, very strict mandates with green. And Robin just came back from the UN, so I'm sure she got an earful from that. We're hearing it with some of our social good work really getting measured that way.
Yeah. I'm curious before we go to Lauren. Sorry, Lauren. SDGs. You mentioned the UN. The UN sustainability goals. How many of you are aware of them or what do you think about them? I mean, one of the things that we did at the event that Lauren and I worked on last year is that we started pulling out, and again, I think there's 18 SDGs. You can't hit all of them, but you can pick the ones that are the most important. But I haven't seen much about SDGs in the last few months. I know that Salesforce, for their Dreamforce event, the last one I went to was in 2019. They did an amazing area about kind of like an SDG village to kind of educate people. And education is really, that's kind of the core of what's behind all of this, to be perfectly honest. But I'm just curious. I see the colors here in Lauren's slide, and maybe you can put SDG, you can put what you think about them in the chat, and I'll let, oh, Lauren's got it. Pull it up. Yeah.
So this is the little welcome card that we put on our swag bag at the Freeman Leadership Conference. And it's all about the different, there are 8 UN SDGs that we chose. And it's printed on recycled and recyclable paper. So we just wanted to make it more true to place. And whoever wants to talk about UN SDGs before I go into this, you can go ahead.
Well, I'd like to say, because I just came from, I work with UNCTAD, which is Trade and Development. In fact, just went to a high-level goodbye party for a colleague of mine. They're changing. I mean, there's 17 SDGs, and to try to get that, it's like, you know, it's like to do that, it's like a clown car in a car wash. It's too many things to do. And they realize this. And let's say, and I didn't say this, but the UN's great for policy, but not for, you know, not for executive or for marketing. So they're actually a whole new initiative that's coming up, that they're actually going to the circular economy, and they're trying to get their message more embraced on the local level and on various different circles of the different colors, where they're really getting beyond just policy, but into practice and into the local level. So I would stay really tuned from what I understand, that they're really going to, in fact, they introduced me as, well, she's from the private sector, and it's usually a dig, but they're actually embracing it now. So stay tuned. You're going to see some more, finally activation in the SDGs.
Excellent. Thanks, Marianne. Lauren, okay, you're up.
Okay. I just want to share with you something that I use on almost a daily basis. And it makes me feel like I'm making an impact that I can physically see. So the Better World Shopper is a publicly funded research project that goes in and rates different companies based on social justice, community involvement, animal protection, the environment, and human rights. And so they take all this data and they go in and they rank all the companies that you buy stuff from. And I feel like the way I can really see my impact is by buying things and voting with my dollar. So this is what I used to come up with our swag bag for Freeman Leadership Conference. Another part of that is looking at the life cycle assessment of a product. So looking at what material it used, what energy went into the manufacturing and assembly of it, how far did it go? Like, is it from overseas or is it local? In that involves fuel. And then in how much do you use it? Do you have to wash it all the time? What energy goes into using the product? And then finally, the end of life. So is it compostable? Is it recyclable? Can it only go to the landfill? So this is what we used in the swag element of it, but you can use it in everyday life. And I just love to share this with everyone that I come in contact to, because it makes me feel like power in numbers, especially if you're planning an event. You know, you can make a huge impact. But of course, I love experiences for swag.
That's great. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be wrapping here. A couple things is that I think, Gigi, you're going to be sharing a link with everyone. If you haven't, all of the panelists have actually put in resources that you can check out and you should look at. And we also put in a few influencers too. Actually, it's on the QR code, the bit.ly code.
If you could,
I just
you
want
can see
to
the
close
code,
with
right? Okay.
is that you can start now. So the takeaways from today for me, like, again, everything doesn't have to be perfect. Start baby steps. I mean, sometimes I don't know how I'm going to do it, but you just move forward. Let's start even thinking about, what do we want the events to look like 10 years from now? It really does get into planning, and we can change it. I've seen change happen, and we can do it. Partnering. We don't have to create something from scratch. There are partners that are out there that can help us. So let's look at that. We don't have to wait for compliance or legislation to move us forward. We have the power to do it. And lastly, don't forget the human element, which is what we're all here today talking about. one thing that I wanted to mention that again is a whole nother topic, but wellness, all of our personal wellness is really important and paramount too. And this education is really kind of a key part of it. So with that, I want to thank you, JT. I appreciate you being here. Malcolm, thank you so much for taking the time to come out. And Lauren, you're a little rock star, and keep going because you can make a big difference, especially in a big company like Freeman. And Robin and team, thank you.
I can't thank you all enough for making this Earth Day so special. And thanks for all of you who participated. So next month, you can mark your calendars. I forget the date, May 18th. We're we're going into the artificial world. Totally. We're having an AI fest. And so if you want to become the master of the prompt, which we're here, I mean, everybody is using this in their daily. We heard this at NAB over and over. It's part of their life. Ivo Henning wrote a book called Prompt Craft. You can get better at working with your machine, which you're going to do. And Ben Parr has a new AI commerce solution, but knows everything about AI. So hopefully you'll join us again and keep following us at the virtual events group. Thank you so much. Happy Earth Day. Enjoy the planet.